We take sound in movies completely for granted. Dolby Atmos, surround sound, it's just expected. But before any of that, Hollywood first had to learn how to talk. And it didn't happen with some kind of digital magic. Nope. It happened with a wild gamble, a mechanical marvel called the Vitaphone that was as brilliant as it was, well, incredibly fragile.
I want you to just picture this for a second. You're sitting in a movie palace. It's 1926. The air is buzzing with excitement. The only sounds you hear are the whir of the projector from the back, maybe a live piano playing in the corner, and people shuffling in their seats. On screen, it's a world of beautiful, sweeping, silent motion. And then, something absolutely impossible happens. A person on screen opens their mouth, and a real human voice, comes pouring out, perfectly in sync. It's a moment that just shatters 2 decades of cinematic silence. This was a promise that was about to change everything. So, how in the world did they pull this off? Well, it wasn't with microchips or lasers, that's for sure. It was with this totally revolutionary system that was, at its heart, this beautiful, kind of clunky, and unbelievably clever piece of engineering. And it all hinged on one core idea. Honestly, this is the best way to wrap your head around Vitaphone. Just forget everything you know about digital files or optical tracks printed on the film itself. For a few glorious, chaotic years, every single movie theater showing a talkie was basically operating a massive, custom-built record player. So yeah, Vitaphone was what they called a sound-on-disc technology, and it was developed by Western Electric, but it was really championed by a studio that was taking a huge risk, Warner Brothers. See, back then they were a smaller studio, kind of scrappy, and they saw this unproven, super expensive tech as their ticket to the big leagues. It was their way to compete with giants like MGM. And believe me, this was a gamble. This was not elegant digital code. This was brute force mechanical engineering. We're talking a system that demanded absolute precision and, frankly, a whole lot of luck to work right, night after night.
The records themselves were these absolute behemoths, 16 inches across. That's way bigger than a modern vinyl LP. They were made of this soft wax compound, and they spun at 33 1/3 RPM, a speed that would actually become the standard for albums later on. Each one of these massive discs held about 10 minutes of audio, which, not coincidentally, was the exact length of one reel of film. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. How did you keep these two machines perfectly in sync? Well, this is where the genius and the fatal flaw of the system really meet. It was a direct physical connection. A whole series of gears and belts literally locked the projector's motor to the turntable. As long as that mechanical link held up, the sound was flawless. But if that belt slipped or the film jumped a sprocket, you got total chaos. And to really get why this mechanical marvel was also kind of a dead end, you just have to look at what came next. Sound on film. So instead of a separate disc, the sound waves were turned into patterns of light and printed right onto the film strip itself. It was simple, it was reliable, and it guaranteed perfect sync every single time. You could see the writing on the wall. Vitaphone was already living on borrowed time. But that high-wire act in the projection booth? That was only the final step. The real creative chaos happened way back in the studio. That's where the magic and the madness truly began. Can you imagine this? There was no editing. There was no, we'll fix it in post. The sound was cut directly onto a master wax disc while the scene was being filmed. So if an actor messes up a line 9 minutes into a 10-minute take, the entire recording was garbage. You had to start over. Actors couldn't move around. They had to stay huddled around microphones that were cleverly hidden in things like flower pots. And the cameras, they were so noisy they had to be sealed inside these massive, hot, soundproof booths that the crew grimly called iceboxes. Okay, so once the studio somehow survived that whole ordeal, the precious film and its matching wax disc were shipped out to theaters all across the country. And that's where the fate of the entire show fell into the hands of just one person, the projectionist. They were the true unsung heroes of the talking picture. For every single reel, for every single showing, the projectionist had to perform this super tense ritual. You had to find the exact starting frame on the film, then find the corresponding starting point on that giant wax disc, cue them both up, start both machines at the exact same instant, and then just pray. Pray that the delicate film strip didn't tear or skip a frame, because that record was going to keep playing, leaving actors on screen silently mouthing dialogue while some other character's voice filled the theater. And all of that pressure, all that mechanical complexity, was made so much worse by one simple, terrifying number: 20. Yep, because the needle was literally carving its way through that soft wax. These discs were consumable. They just wore out. After only 20 plays, the sound quality would degrade into a scratchy, unusable mess. So theaters had to constantly order fresh sets of discs for popular movies. I mean, what a logistical and financial headache on top of everything else. So, let's recap. It was cumbersome, it was delicate, and it was a nightmare to work with. And yet, for one brief, shining moment, it completely changed the world. It's a legacy that is just as fragile and fascinating as the tech that created it. Its lifespan was unbelievably brief. It just bursts onto the scene in 1926. A year later, it changes film forever with The Jazz Singer. That's the movie that proved talkies were the future. But by the early 1930s, it was basically gone. The whole industry just stampeded towards the much superior sound on film systems. So what's left of the Vitaphone era are these giant wax discs. So many have been lost or destroyed over the years, but the ones that survive, they are priceless historical artifacts. They're the fragile ancestors of every single roar, explosion, and whisper that makes us lean forward in our seats, that makes us believe in the magic of the movies. Think about it. The Vitaphone was the absolute cutting edge. For a moment in time, it was the future. And then in just a few short years, it was a museum piece. It really makes you wonder, right? What indispensable technology that we use every single day is just waiting to become tomorrow's giant wax disc?